welcome to the Stolen Minutes channel. My name is Carrie, and this is primarily a knitting podcast where I talk all about what I've been making or finished, things like that. It's been a while since I have recorded. It's been almost a year. I kind of can't even believe that, but it's where we're at right now. So I'm not going to recap the whole year, but I do want to share one of the biggest projects off of my needles this year. It actually happened way back in the spring, but I didn't record a podcast, so I never got to share it here except for on Instagram. I am also active over on Instagram if you'd like to follow me there. I am Stolen Minutes _. And I'm also Stolen Minutes on Ravelry if you're on there and like to look at any of my project notes, things like that. They will all be over on my Ravelry page. I'll do my best to kind of talk through the different yarn that I used or anything different about the pattern. But all of my notes that I took will be over on that Ravelry page if you want to check it out. Let's see, what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about what I have finished recently, what I'm currently working on. I'm going to talk about what I've been reading. I'm going to talk about my plans for December. And then I thought it would be kind of fun because I was looking back through as I was thinking about what am I going to talk about today. And I was looking back through my knitting notebook, and I thought it might be kind of fun to share how I set up my knitting notebook and how it's kind of evolved over the years. So I thought we would talk about that. I think today we're going to start first with what I have been working on. Like what projects am I currently grabbing when I sit down in the evenings? So as always, I am always knitting socks. In fact, this past month in October, what marked 20 years from when I started to knit socks, when I first learned. Let's see, my youngest was not even a year old. She was like she was like a year and a half old, almost a year and a half. And I stumbled into a yarn shop with my mom one day. And they had a pair of socks and it said something about a sock knitting class. And I said, oh, I'd really like to learn to knit socks. Like at that point, I had been crocheting for probably 10, 15 years at least. And, knitting was something that I kept seeing, but just never had put the time into it. I taught myself to crochet in college. And then when I graduated college, I took a couple of knitting lessons from a woman, and I never really stuck with it. I didn't put in the time like practicing. So I kind of just fell off of that, and I was happy to just be crocheting. So I did that for years and years and years, made blankets. I like to make toppers on, kitchen towels to hang in the kitchen, like on a drawer or on a fridge. So I had crocheted those kind of things for years, and knitting was just this thing that I thought was maybe just beyond me, that maybe it just was not for me, and I let it go. Well, the knitting bug started to hit me. It had to be maybe after I had our first. I remember like knitting. I don't remember what I picked up to knit when I first started, but I remember thinking, okay, I need to get the hang of this knit and purl business. I was using the book Stitch and Bitch. I cannot remember the author's name, but that was the book in the early 2000s that seemed the most, it had a lot of pictures in it, and it was just different than those like pamphlet leisure arts kind of how-to books. It just felt a little more user-friendly, and I think there were some patterns in there and things like that. So after I got the hang of knit and purl, it took me a long time to figure out bringing that yarn to the front to purl. That took a long time for me to like grasp for whatever reason. But I remember after I started knitting, I thought, you know what, I need to get the hang of this knit and purl business. And so I knit my husband a 2x2 ribbed scarf. And if anything will teach you ribbing, it's a scarf, right? Because they're so long. And I remember working on that for a long time. And we still have it. It's still around. So I did that. So that was about the extent of my knitting experience. I was still crocheting along this whole time, and we went into this yarn shop and I saw these socks, and my mom was blown away with the lack of a seam across the top of the foot. She forever has hated that seam, hates it when it and I agree. I totally agree. I hate that store-bought seam across the top of the foot, or if it slides underneath so she just was blown away by that. And I said, well, if you watch the baby, I'll take this class and learn how to knit socks. And yeah. And so she said, sure. I think there was 2 or 3 classes, and there was about half a dozen of us or so in the class. And Connie is who I learned from. She was a great teacher. I remember her kids were just a little bit older than mine. Like they were maybe like middle school or late elementary. And she was just so patient and kind. And she talked about knitting socks for her kids. And I don't know, it just drew me in. And so anyways, I learned to knit socks and I fell in love immediately. I'll admit, I was happy for those beginning years with a 1.5-year-old. And then we had our second baby, maybe a year after that. So, I mean, it was a busy time to be learning how to knit socks, but I was happy to knit like a couple of pairs of socks a year at that point. And that was great. I was so tickled. Then as the years progressed, it was something that was easy for me to take to the parks and pick up with them and knit while they were playing, and I could still be attentive and aware of what was going on. And so just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so happy that I took that chance and leaped and went for knitting those socks. Like I said, I could knit and purl. And I remember thinking like, okay, it's fine. Whatever else you need to do. Like, I don't think I had ever done any decreases or anything like that. So like knitting that gusset, picking up those heels, that was, picking up the gusset and knitting those decreases, that was all new skills for me. And I just had the best time doing it. So, and here I am 20 years later, still knitting socks and absolutely loving it and obsessed. So that's where we are. So sorry about the tangent, but I just noticed that when I was looking through my notes, and I thought, I know that I learned to knit socks sometime in the fall, around 2005. And it was October 2005. So, I don't even know how long it took me to knit that second sock, because by the end of the class, she got us like onto the toe. And so I don't know how long it took me to get the second one. This was all like pre-Ravelry. I think I joined Ravelry in like 2008 or something. So, this was like 2005. So yeah. Anyways, so what am I currently working on? Let's talk about that first. 3 pairs of socks on the needles. These 3 pairs I started in mid-September, and they have just been my pickup go-to vanilla sock that I can grab and take with me in the car or whatever. Oh, by the way, this is Chet next to me, and he's a sweet, sweet boy. And I have Shadow behind me here. He just turned 17, and so my sweet boy, he sleeps a lot, and I put a fleece blanket on the couch, and that's all that I have to do. And then he is just a magnet to it. And yeah, so, he's very happy. So we're just going to let him do his thing. Sometimes he does come and lay in my lap. Occasionally he'll go up there, but I guess Chet's going to be my co-host today. All right. Enough cat chatter. So the first of my 3 pairs of socks, I've got these three sitting in front of me. Like I said, I started these all in mid-September, like around the same time. Oh, don't you know it? This one popped a couple stitches. Oh, okay. And of course, I'm like mid-row. I'm on the heel flap too. So, okay, I do have one sock finished. I think each of these I am on, yeah, each of these I'm on the second sock. So this is the one that I'm currently working on. I'm on the heel flap, but here it is finished. Like Chet's face. Okay, we go. All right. This yarn is by Knitted Wit. It is her Shenandoah colorway. I absolutely love Knitted Wit's sock base. It's an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. I absolutely love her base. It's so squishy. It wears really well. And I just love how her colorways always knit up. I have a lot of this yarn in my stash, and a lot of it is the knitted or the national parks. She has a national parks series, and when we go down to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, the yarn shop down there has had Knitted Wit's national parks yarn, and so I always have to snag a couple when I'm there. So that is the first. The second sock that I've been working on, oh, and that pair is for my mom. So I generally always have at least 2 pairs of socks on the needle, one for myself, one for my mom. And then I'll be honest, my sister has started to love the knitted socks as well. So of these 3 pairs, I have one for me, one for her, and one for my mom on the needles. And I love it. I love knitting for my mom and my sister. They're both very appreciative, love their knits, take care of them. What more could you ask for? So this next one is one that I'm knitting for my sister. Ooh, all right. This one is just past the heel flap. I've even done the heel turn. So they always all end up in the same stage at the same time. So this one is by the Copper Corgi. We got this yarn down in Tennessee. This yarn is super sparkly. This is the Copper Corgi Autumn Changes. It's a super sparkly yarn that I don't think the camera will pick up on it, but it's very sparkly. I mean, you can kind of see it a little bit. Yeah, it's really sparkly. And this is the second sock. So I'm just plugging away on these. Both of these pairs I would like to finish and give them for Christmas. They buy their own yarn, but you know, like if I can get them done by Christmas and just give myself that deadline, why not, you know? So that is sock number 2. The third sock on my needles that I've been working on is My Socks. And this one is, let me grab out. It is by Loft 22, and she does not dye yarn anymore. And this is called Caroling. I picked to knit this yarn because I just love all the colors in here. So many colors on every stitch. It's really hard to even capture all of it, but it's green, and there's like a darker green, there's a teal, there's this blush pink color. I chose to knit a stripe in the cuff, and then I brought it back for the toe. So I did just like some little stripes there at the end. So I will mimic that on the other sock. I didn't want like a solid colored toe. I wanted a little bit of interest when you get down there. So that's what I did for that. So those are the socks that I've been working on. I've worked on those along with some scrappy socks, which I will show because I have finished those. So those I'll talk about in a minute. But I have 2 other things that I have been working on. So And one of them is a long-term project. It is the Ripple Camisole by Jessie May. And I started this back in June of 2024. So it's over a year old. And I just want to be able to wear it, Like I think it'd be so cozy underneath like a flannel shirt. I envision wearing it on like Sunday, on the weekends, under a flannel shirt with like sweatpants and just being comfy and cozy and warm. So that is what this will be. It's a huge tube at the moment of like I think it was 3x3 rib. And now I am to the front. So then the front and the back are both like triangles because it's a camisole. So it's kind of like a bikini top as far as like it's triangles on the front and on the back. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Let's see. So I am like 6 rows into, excuse me. I'm like 6 rows into the half of the front, so not very far along at all. I would love to continue to work on this. I got the body part done, and I'm not kidding. It took me, I tried it on to make sure like it was long enough, and then it's taken me weeks to start the next part, to sit down, to have enough brain power to read the pattern and follow the directions and all that good stuff. So I feel like maybe I'm off to a good start with this. I don't know. With December coming up, who knows if I'll touch it again before the new year. But this yarn is Graphic Dye Works yarn, and it is a fingering weight yarn, and the name of the colorway is Fizzy Flamingo. So it's just a nice, like, kind of blushy pink. It's a very soft yarn. I was thinking if it does not have cashmere. It's an 80-20 base. So it does not have cashmere, but it is super soft. Like it feels like it could. So this is kind of my project that I think if I just get into it, I'll pick it up. Of course, I say that, but then I have other little things that hop onto my needles and distract me from wanting to do that. And these, if you follow me on Instagram, I shared these earlier this week because I found them I had cast them on this weekend and had started working on them. And I've obviously wanted to just knit many of them. So these are tiny hats. Here they are. How cute are these? Okay, Chet. So these little tiny hats. I mean, what is even going on? Yeah. McKaylee of Breaking Yarn, she shared this pattern first, and it's been a week or two, and I just kept thinking about them, and I just thought they would make the cutest little gifts to like tie on a package or even on stockings. I like to give an ornament gift with a stocking. So yeah, I think that's probably what these are going to be. But for now, I'm just having fun making these up. Super simple. You cast on 24 stitches, knit 2, purl 2, or no, yeah. Knit 1, purl 1 around. You do that for 2.5 inches. For me, that's 21 rounds. And then you do even decreases for the crown. And then you end it off and use your tail for the loop to hang it with instead of weaving it in. You hold sock yarn double, and I used US 1.5 needles, and I just do a magic loop. That is the instructions that McKaylee shared. And so I asked her if I could reshare it, and she said, yeah, sure. So if you go on my Instagram and look for one of my more recent posts, you'll also see I wrote out the pattern on a little note card. And so that is on my Instagram if you would like to also knit a little tiny hat. I'm using a lot of the leftovers from my scrappy socks that I'll share here next, but tons of fun. I love seeing the different combinations of colors and mixing different yarns and just seeing how they play together and all that good stuff. So, yep. Okay. Let's talk about what I've finished. I will share these scrappy socks and then I will share the thing that I finished back in April that I was super happy to stay committed to and get done. But first, let's talk about scrappy socks. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know if there's a good way to show these. Do you see all these? Oh my gosh. So I've knit 3 pairs of scrappy socks. If you've been around here for a while, you probably know where this is going, but I knit a pair for me, a pair for my mom, and a pair for my sister. So I started knitting these from the monster cowl that Sue over on Instagram hosts. And I started these back in mid-September, right? I started one of them because I think the knit along was like October 1st or something, but I jumped the gun and cast one on. I kind of thought that I might knit 3 pairs. So I thought if I start early, it's not a big deal. And yeah, so I started out, I knit these 3 first. And because I knew it was going to be for me, my mom, and my sister, I kind of wondered if I could knit the cuff the same on all of them, on all 6 socks. But I soon figured out I wasn't going to have enough of this turquoise yarn to do that. Oh, well, okay, so back up. I pulled all of my scraps that had hot pink. That was my main criteria for these socks. Any yarn I picked had to have a hot pink in it or a pink, whatever. It had to have pink. And most of them just have like a hot, like kind of like neon pink in it. And so I pulled those all together and I thought, all right, let's just see how far these go. Now, some were smaller little scraps than others, but most were leftover scraps from socks. So I had a good like 40 grams or so of each one. So I knew I would more likely have enough to get 3 pairs of socks from. And so the first 3 I knit, when I knit scrappy socks, I have several pairs and I like to knit something on them that makes it easy to identify pairs. So for this, like I said, I started with the turquoise and I realized I wasn't going to have enough of that to do 6 whole cuffs with. So I did it on the first 3 and then the second 3 or the last 3, I did different main colors for the cuffs. But on all the cuffs, I did put this hot pink stripe in there. So I did 25 rounds. I did 10 rounds of one color, 5 rounds of the hot pink, and then I did 10 more rounds of whatever color I had chosen for the cuff. With the exception of this one and this one, because I realized after the fact that I only did like 3 rounds of the pink instead of 5. I don't know what happened, but I used 18 different scraps in each sock. So there's 18. So if I were going to pull together a little scrappy sock kit, I would get 18 different scraps. And I figured out that I did 10 rounds of each color. For every 10 rounds, I used like 2.1 grams. So if I had a scrap that was at least 2.25 grams or 2.5 grams, I know that I could do one of the 10 round stripes. Now the heel, I believe for me, took almost 5 grams. I do a 68 stitch sock on US ones, and that is what I needed, was about a little over 2 grams for each 10 round stripe. Now, I will admit, I think there were a couple that must have just been a little short of that. And so there might be like a couple of stripes that have 9 rounds instead of 10. But it felt really good to use up all of my favorite colors and revisit some socks and projects that I've knit over the years, and just had these beautiful scraps lying around. And it was so good to finally put them into something. Okay, so they're kind of telling on me here. Only one of these socks has all of the ends woven in. Only one. So what does that mean? That means I have five that still need the ends woven in. So I told you I had 18 colors per sock, and actually 19 because I put that pink in there. So if you're, doing your math, that's 38 ends per sock to weave in. Times 6 is 228. Yeah. So, that's a lot. So I have like some 190 ends left to weave in on these socks, but it'll be so worth it. I'm going to give them their pairs for Christmas. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. And neither of them watch this podcast. And if they do, Merry Christmas. But no, I'm pretty sure my sister does not watch this. And same with my mom. I don't think either of them watch it on a regular basis anyways. So, all right. Love, love, love these. All right. Highly recommend Scrappy Socks. Highly, highly recommend. Every sock felt like a new one because you're putting them in different orders. I think if you just pull together a whole bag of your favorite scraps that you have in your little stash of leftovers, I don't see how you can knit a sock that you aren't going to love. If you just have all these colors that you love, put them together and just grab whichever one you want. I went through different phases in each of these. I tried to have a mix of lighter toned ones. Like some of them have, they're more light in color, or they have a lot of white in the yarn. But then I tried to balance that with some of these that read a little bit darker. I just would hold up. So if I was knitting along, and I was ready to do this next stripe, I would hold up a couple of different balls next to it and just decide if it was working for me or not. Honestly, the word that comes to mind is if it made my heart zing. If I just held it up and was like, ooh, I like how that looks, then that was the color I would do next. I didn't try to really plan it out much in advance. I knew I loved all of the yarns that were in there. I tried to only include each color one time in a sock. I think there's one sock where I had to repeat something from the leg on the toe because I just was kind of running out of colors at that point. But the more crazy you think they are next to each other, or the more you think that they won't work together, I'm here to tell you that that is probably the combo you should go with. I'll tell you, I was super hesitant about this cuff. I just thought, oh man, the whole time I was knitting with all of these scraps, this orange, pink, and green one was probably the one that I struggled to add in the most. I mean, I think it does make an appearance in every sock at some point. So here it is in this one. So that's on the cuff. But I was like, I don't know how it's going to be with that pink. I love it. I might even need to keep this one for myself. But I found it very exciting to just do different combos and try different things next to each other. And I went for a mix of light and dark. If I felt like I had a couple of dark ones, well, I wanted to throw a light in. But I didn't want to get so methodical that I was like, oh, the next one has to be light because the last one was dark. Or this one can't have neon because that one did. Like, nope. If it made my heart zing when I held them up together, I knit them in. And I'll tell you, I look at all these and I can't tell you, I don't have a favorite. I like them all. So I'm here to tell you, just put the crazy combinations together. I think you'll love it. And every sock unit will feel like a new project. And scrappy socks are my favorite to pull out to wear. It is just, when I'm in doubt for whatever sock, what pair I want to wear, I almost always grab a scrappy sock. So I'll be having some fun weaving in ends when it's cold outside. That is what I want to do, but scrappy socks. Okay, now that we've talked about those, let me tell you about the project that I finished back in the spring that honestly, at some point I thought, I'm never going to finish this thing. I just know I'm not. But I did. And I'm so happy that I did. Again, I didn't finish it until April, so I didn't even really wear it. I finished it, I blocked it, and then I tucked it away in a drawer because it was April and it wasn't really that cold. But this year, I am excited to maybe have this on the where I sit and wrap it around my shoulders or wear it out. I don't know. We'll see. But this is the Trifle Wrap by Helen Stewart. If you are getting an Advent this year and you're looking for a project to just really sink your teeth into, I recommend this project. It is a wrap and it is large. I will tell you that it is large. I did still have little bits of leftovers of each color, but it was wonderful. I can't even tell you all the details anymore. Go look at my Ravelry page if you want to see my notes on it. But this was an Advent that I had gotten from McMullen Fiber back in 2021. She is a local to me yarn dyer, and I always see her at our local yarn festival, and I love her yarns. Her base is so pretty, so squishy, soft, all those things. But I loved this pattern because I love the ripple effect and yeah, just so fun. And I didn't do them in the order that I had like opened them up or anything. I kept them in that order for a long time. And I didn't start this until February of 2024. So I had this Advent for like 3 years before I could land on what I wanted to make with it. And then at that point, I was like, oh, how am I going to group these? And so I decided to group them by color. And I found that I think I had like 5 to 6 colors per similar colors. So like I had like 5 or 6 reds, and then I kind of grouped the golds with the tans. And then I had this lovely patch of purple. And then there was like this pinkish kind of color. And then there was like a blue-green. Well, the pattern calls to hold your fingering weight yarn with a mohair. And I debated on just holding one mohair with it, but if you've ever worked with mohair, you know that whatever color that mohair is, it is going to strongly influence and in some cases overpower your sock yarn. And I didn't want that to happen. So I kind of, I debated on like a white or an ecru, but I didn't want it to mute these really dark colors. And I also didn't want on like the red and the green to have the white silk strand. If I chose ecru, I didn't want the white thread of the mohair really contrasting against the red. I wanted something that would highlight each one. So what I did was I chose a mohair that coordinated, was in the same color family as the group that I was working on. So this one, I had a dark, like hunter green mohair. This one, I had a blushy pink mohair. This one, I had a bright fuchsia purple mohair, really kind of like was in this family. This one, I went with an ecru. So it just kind of highlighted the gray and that tone. And then this one, I went with a red. So I just really wanted the mohair to blend in and give like a halo. So that's what it did. And it was really fun to look forward to changing the color of the mohair with each group. That was really fun to look forward to. But it is warm and it is big. I mean, you could probably half the number of chevrons you do. But anyways, really fun. For me, it was a very long-term project. I started knitting it in February of 2024. I think I knit it for like a month or two. I didn't get too far in, and then I put it down because it got to be summer and I'm not going to knit with mohair in the summer. And then it was Christmas knitting, and then it was Advent knitting. And so then it was January, and I thought, I'm picking this thing back up and I'm just going to work on it and finish it. So I did. But it took me like 3 months or so to finish this. I don't even remember how far into it I was, but anyways, super excited to have it to use this year. Oh, so excited about that. Okay. Make sure that I'm on track here, what I'm talking about. Okay. What else are we going to talk about? I want to talk to you about my knitting crochet notebook and what my plans are for December and what I'm reading. So we'll kind of knock out those last 3 things. Shadow. I think he's wanting to come up here. Are you coming up? Yeah. Okay. Now, see, now Chet is laying up against me behind me. Come here, buddy. Come on. He's coming. I know. Yes, come here. I had to reposition. Oh. Yeah, you want to say hi? Here he is. Oh, here he is. Here's my buddy. He is my knitting boy. Okay. All right, so he's going to hopefully lay down. We're going to talk about my notebook. Okay? Okay, so I have kept some sort of a project notebook for years. I have done different things, kept track of different things over the years. And for the past couple years, I've had this notebook since 2023. I have kind of culled it down to exactly what I want. So I've gone differently over the years where I've tracked by month what projects I started and then also what projects I finished. I've always used it to just keep notes about different things maybe that I'm going to put into my Ravelry project page. Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't think you know what you're doing. Just lay down. Okay. So I've had, where I have like kept track of what I started working on, when I finished it, but I've always used it for notes about projects. So maybe if I have an idea about something or a stitch pattern or pattern notes when I'm knitting something, but it's evolved into this. And this was a notebook that I just kept hoarding. Do you hoard notebooks? Ugh. This is a Rifle Paper Co. notebook, and I just think it is so pretty, and I put off using it. And I finally was like, this is dumb. Just use the notebook. So I started this in 2023, and I very much just use it for my knitting notebook. I've kind of culled it down. So I love at the beginning of the year to write down what projects I have coming into the year. So just whatever I have on the needles that I consider an active project. So I certainly have some projects that I haven't worked on in a long time, and they don't make this list unless, like, the trifle wrap, unless I pick that back up and I'm like, nope, this is going to get finished, or we're going to work on this. But if it's something that has just languished, then it doesn't go on this list. So I write out projects that are coming into the new year that I'm, carrying over from the previous. And then I like to make a dream knitting want to make list of things. I'll be honest, this year I had 6 things that I had wrote on here. Not one of them in my want to make list has actually happened at all. But in my projects that came into the new year, I had 11, and I have 4 left out of that 11. And a couple of those are blankets, and so they're super, super long-term projects. And I have a sock that I was using to experiment with different size and gauge and stuff like that. And then I have my Ripple camisole that I'm working on. So I really would like to finish that. So after I list the projects that I'm carrying over, then I have a category where I'm listing out the socks that I knit for me and my mom. And then new this year, I added in my sister on there because I've knit her 3, and when I finish that sparkly pair, that'll be 4 for her for this year. But I like to keep track because I like to try and keep it even between me and my mom if I can. As of now, I've knit myself 3 more pairs than I have knit her. She doesn't care, and sometimes it's flip-flop the other way. So I like to keep track of that because I like to keep track of my socks kind of separately. And then here's the part that I often find very interesting. So then I list out my finished projects by month, and I just do it as I go. So I write January, and then when I finish a project in January, I list it and I put the date. And I just find that to be very interesting when I look back to see what months I did the most knitting in. I feel like I have fuzz on my face, probably from my wrap. And so it's interesting to see when I finished something and what months I finished more in and how big those things were. So those 5 or 6, the 6 scrappy socks that I knit, I didn't track those individually through October. I should have, but I didn't. But I have nothing finished in October, and that's because I considered those 3 pairs to be one project, not individual projects. Because when I was knitting it, I didn't know which sock was, which ones were going to be a pair, and I still don't know. But I didn't have anything that I finished in October, which is kind of crazy. But that just means for November, look, I'm going to have 3 pairs of socks, and that might be it. But I just think that's kind of fun. And then I just do other little things in here. Like I have a page in here about my scrappy socks, kind of all of my details on that. Like I was telling you earlier, how I do 18 colors, how I did 10 rounds. I use 2.1 grams per 10 rounds. Yeah, so I did that. I wrote the tiny hat pattern in my notebook as well, just because I know at the very least I will come back and look at this if I'm ever wondering how I knit that. I'll probably type it up and put it in my Ravelry page as well, but it is here if I, don't have my phone and I just want to grab my notebook. So I don't know. I just think it's nice to know it's all in one place. It makes me want to go pull out my old notebooks because they were very much less organized as I was experimenting with different ways to do it And who knows, next year I might find that I want to do something else with it. But I've used it for other stuff too. Like if I knit a sock with a different stitch pattern or something, I'll write that stitch pattern in here. I also, I think it was last year. Yeah, I think it was like last spring. I took inventory of my stash and I went through and I wrote down every skein of yarn that I have and the yarn dyer. Just for my own self. So I've been knitting largely from stash because it makes you think about doing that. So that's my knitting crochet project notebook that I keep. And yeah, I encourage you to use the pretty notebooks, use the pretty pens, use the pretty yarn. Just use it. There's gonna be more pretty stuff. Use what you love now. And okay, December plans. Okay, do we want to talk about that? Or are we going to talk about reading? Let's talk about what I've been reading first, and then we'll talk about my plans for December. Okay, so what I have been reading for this past year, what I've been listening to the most has been the Inspector Gamache series by Louise Penny. I'm on book 6, I believe. And I have been enjoying these so much. My friend Vicky last January had shared that they were books that she had really enjoyed. She had read like all 17. It's like a really long series. There's like 17. And then my other friend was saying, oh, I started that because you had recommended it. And she was on like book 10 or something. And I thought, all right, I need to try this because you guys are making it sound good. And it's all of the characters build and you learn more about them. And this Inspector Gamache detective is throughout all of them. And it's set in a fictional town called Whispering Pines in Canada. And it is just lovely. The characters are so fun and they always surprise you. Now, I will say I'm listening to these. I haven't read any in like paperback. They've all been books that I've been listening to. And I will have to go back and re-listen to things and stuff sometimes because my mind will wander and then I'm, like what happened? So, I don't know, but they are very enjoyable. So I highly recommend that. One of the other books that has stood out to me that I read this year was Never Flinch by Stephen King. If you've been around, I love Stephen King, and this is a book that has his character Holly in it. So if you ever read the Mr. Mercedes series, Holly was introduced in that book, or in that series, and people absolutely love Holly, and so he's continued to bring her back, and Never Flinch was maybe the second standalone book with her. There was Holly. I think he had a book. The one before that was called Holly. And she is just a character. So Never Flinch. Recommend Never Flinch by Stephen King. The book that I'm reading right now, I'm listening to the Inspector Gamache series. I'm listening to A Trick of the Light. But I am reading The Newcomers by Mary Kay Andrews, and it's great. I forget about Mary Kay Andrews sometimes, but she's just an easy read. There's like a little bit of romance, but it's not overwhelming. And yeah, I've just been enjoying that. I don't know what I'll read after that. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. December plans for knitting. Let's talk about that. I did not order any Advent yarn this year. I told myself back in the spring, hey, you've got Christmas yarn sitting in your cabinet that you haven't knit. Why don't you just pick one of those? Just pick a couple of those and knit socks with that. Because I found that over the last year or so, or a couple of years of Advent, that I've not been like just knitting one stripe and then, I had like multiple socks going and it was hard to keep up. And so I thought, you know what? let's just pick out 2, maybe 3. I would love to knit a pair for me, my mom, and my sister for Christmas Day, but I think that's ambitious. I'm trying to be realistic with myself, and I would like for whatever I knit to be done. So I think I'm going to go with just 2. So I went down right before I was going to sit down here to chat, and I thought, okay, just let's look at what I have in the cabinet and let's see what's jumping out at me. So the 2 that I have pulled out is this one. This one is by Zebra Yarns. This is by Anna. She doesn't dye yarn anymore, but it's a self-striping, red and white, looks like a candy cane. And then I pulled this green stroll that I think I'll probably use for the cuff and the toe or something like that. So I think I'm going to do this one. This will be for my mom. And then the other one I pulled out is by Mandy's Makings, and this one is called Snow Globe. I believe she dyed these up last year, and when I saw it, I just had to have it. So it's a beautiful minty color. It has like this corally, rusty color in there, and I see some like dark navy and some like grassy green colors in there. So I think this is going to be my December sock knitting. So this is what I'm planning on doing for this. And then the other thing that I would love to start is a sweater. And so that's the main reason why I'm feeling the need to pull back on the number of socks that I cast on in December, because I would love to knit this sweater. So I bought this yarn in New Jersey at Do You Knit last fall in 2024 when we went for a family wedding. And this is by 29 Bridges. They were having a trunk show at Do You Knit. It is their Pont d'K base, and it's a superwash merino, yak, and silk, and this colorway is called Front Row. And it is just this beautiful like mulberry color, and I think I'm going to knit the Monday sweater by, I think it's a petite knit pattern. Yeah. And it is just a basic, do I have a good picture? Let me take my Post-its with all my gauge. But it is just a basic crew neck sweater, which is exactly what I am really wanting. So I did my gauge swatch, and on the recommended needle size, I'm like 1 stitch short of the recommended gauge. So I think I'm going to go down a needle size and see what that gets me. It's a pretty oversized sweater. It calls for 8 to 9 inches or 6 to 8 inches of positive ease. And so if I go down 1 needle size and I lose, I'm closer to gauge, or I'm even a little tighter than gauge, that's okay. It is a superwash yarn, so it has the potential to grow. So I think it'll be fine. I just need to actually get myself to cast it on. That is my problem. If I just get it started, it'll be great. So, I think that is all I have to share. I can't believe I got all that in less than an hour. So we'll see how long it takes me to get this uploaded. I hope to be back in the new year and chatting with you. I would love to get on a more regular podcasting schedule, but I know myself, and I know that it's difficult for me to fit that in. I have an Etsy shop where I make project bags for knitters and crocheters. If you're in the market for a bag, go hop over to the shop. There will be a link below to that. I have lots of beautiful florals and Charlie Harper prints in there. I am not doing holiday bags this year. The fall just got too busy for me. And I just could not fit a holiday update in the time frame that felt reasonable and comfortable. So I have some projects and ideas definitely on my mind and sewing table. So stay tuned. If you want to know when new bags are coming into the shop, by all means, sign up for our newsletter. That will be down below as well. And that is the best way to know when new bags are coming into the shop. I try to post them on Instagram, and I usually do, but just in case, a newsletter might be a good day as well. So, yeah, I hope you get lots of knitting or crochet time or whatever craft you're enjoying. I hope you get lots of time to do that. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I do not plan on doing Vlogmas or honestly even recording in December. I will do my best to come back and catch up with you in the early new year to see how the holidays went for you. In the meantime, take care. Happy knitting. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.